Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can, mate. How you doing?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
Yeah, I say can I hear you okay? Not that great.
Okay.
Maybe if I turn my volume
Let
up.
me try.
Ah,
Let me
that's
try
all right.
without the bugs.
Just turn my volume up. Testing,
No,
testing.
no, good. That's not going to turn them off.
I think it's all right. I mean, ideally, it'd be better with a headset, so you got a microphone. You got a headset with a microphone, Jason?
Yeah, I don't really have an. No, no, I don't have an environment that's very conducive to this type of
Yeah. Okay.
interaction.
Well,
I'm sorry.
that's cool. Yeah.
What
We'll,
is
we'll.
that? What is that like? That sound?
That's all right. I can hear you, mate. Yeah, it's good.
It might. It might be some internet issues. So let me see if I can fix that. Last time we spoke, I actually lost internet and didn't realise it at the time. Anyway,
Well,
um,
that's good. Well,
good to
you're
see you
doing
again. Thanks for letting
well,
me
so we
in.
can't expect miracles, can we?
No, well, we'll do our best. Um, so, how was the timing for me requesting to speak with
Yeah.
you today?
Well, this is my optimum time. This is 22 minutes past 7. Obviously in the evening time. That's I generally start my chats at 7 o'clock. By the time I've done my shower and my food, and so I've done all that, and I'm ready to go now, mate. But you're about 2 a.m., aren't you?
About 3:30 now.
Yeah. So are you? Is that sort of normal for you to stay up at that time?
Oh no, 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 not at all.
Ah. So.
Sometimes I'm up late, but no, I made an exception to speak with you.
Oh, okay, brilliant. All right then. Well, let's take it away then, mate. When was the last time we spoke?
Um, that was probably 8 months ago.
Right. Seems longer.
Now, yeah, well, maybe it was 9 months, 10 months. But I was a bit scattered at that point. I don't know if you remember too much of our conversation. I was a bit everywhere. So I've tried to make this one a little bit more structured. And you have to let me know if the audio is cutting out and all that sort of business, and you can try reconnect or something. Um, so first, I just want to ask you a couple of questions quickly, and then I'll just move on to some things I wanted to tell you about me.
Hmm.
Um, so I've been thinking about this. You have a lot of the time you talk about how nobody else seems to be on your wavelength,
Yeah.
and you're finding it difficult to find people who are you can connect with. And I'm just wondering if it's related maybe to your aphantasia. That's not a lot of people have that, and I'm just thinking if I had that, I would be probably thinking differently too, because when I'm thinking, I'm picturing things, and you aren't. So you are thinking on a completely different wavelength to the majority of the population.
Yeah. Well, that's a brilliant observation. Um, and apparently, aphantasiacs are about 5% of the population.
Yeah,
And what I discovered is, you see how this come about was when I was out with my usual rendezvous with Paul. He always used to speak about how he lies in bed and he builds a world, and he's on a desert island and he builds a house from scratch and this that, and the other. And the way he was always talking about it is kind of like he was there and he could see everything. And I'm like, you sound like you've been reading too many science fiction books, because you've got a very vivid imagination. And so he said, I see it. I says, what, you actually see it in your head? And he says, yes. every
mm.
fine detail, just as like I'm looking out here in the world. I went, "Oh, come on," with that level of clarity. But then I adjusted myself and I went, well, I have had experiences, very, very powerful experiences. And, hypnagogia, hypnopompion, those sort of things where I have seen brilliant clarity. It's been amazing. It's like I've been looking at the television. And so I'm like, okay, well, tell me more about that. And so I said, okay, just imagine a chair then. Tell me what sort of chair you got. And he described exactly what this sort of chair was. And then I said, okay, describe to me a beach. And he described the beach. And I said, how clear actually do you see that? He says, mate, I see it as clear as when I'm looking out over this landscape now. I'm like,
Yeah, I think a lot of people have different levels of being able to visualize. Some
yes.
will see in black and white. Some will see just an outline. Some people see in full color. And I'm on the middle. I sort of see semi colors, semi black and white. But for you, not having anything, well, you've got all that extra bandwidth to be contemplating different things, while the rest of us are all distracted by our
Well,
visualizations.
the thing is, and what I said to him, I said, okay, well, think of a chair. And then he started to describe a chair. And I said, well, look, I don't see any chair. If you said to me, think of a chair, my mind is blank, but I can imagine like Plato's forms and ideas. I can imagine all the chairs I've ever seen in my life and a billion others that I could invent. Out of all different sorts of materials, out of pure jasper, out of diamond, all these different sorts of things. So what I said to him, I said, "Well, look, I think that this what can I say? This inability to be able to see things really serves me well. It serves me better than yours serves you because when I say to you, think of a chair, you think of one specific chair because you see a specific chair. But when you say to me, think of a chair, I'm open to millions potentially of
Mm.
chairs. So therefore, my mind isn't constrained by one vision which focuses my attention and narrows my perception of an ideas down. No, my mind is completely open, so I can speak about wooden chairs, plastic chairs, wicker chairs, precious metal chairs, and
But you
gemstone.
don't see them in your mind's eye. You don't see them. No.
I see
Well,
nothing.
that's just something I wanted to bring up to, to your attention. That maybe you're on a different wavelength because in you're not seeing things that distract you and in your mind. And like I can be reading something and I start picturing things, and I can then start picturing something nothing to do with the movie. Sorry, with the book, and it distracts you. So you're trying to read something and you get distracted by your own visualizations, and you start drifting off very easily. So I just thought I'd suggest that to you. I noticed that maybe why you do it think a bit differently to everybody else, and it would be frustrating.
Well,
Anyway, I'm gonna move on.
no, no, no,
Is
don't
that all
don't
right?
move. This is really fascinating. I'd like to pursue it a little bit longer if you're okay with that, because
Well, I'm
the
not
one
an expert on it. It's just a observation. That was all.
I'm not an expert on it, and I don't think anybody is. You see, because the videos I've watched, people are speaking about it very tentatively, and there's very little scientific research being done on it. It really is a new thing. Let's say most certainly within the past decade, scientists have been sort of tentatively investigating it, and I think that you're onto something because due to the fact that I don't see pictures, my mind does certainly work in a different way. It works more broader, potentially more
Mm.
expansively, and so I'm not narrow in my thoughts, and that is classic me. And when I'm saying to people, you're also myopic in your perception, and you just see this tiny little world. I mean, and maybe that's what it is attributed to, because people are always seeing in pictorial forms, and it's narrowing down their perspective, and then they don't follow anything else, they don't investigate, they don't search for anything else because they've already got the answer.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely a good theory. I like that.
Did you
Definitely
see
like that.
my video today? I think you did. I think you commented on it. The one where I'm speaking about language.
No, no.
No.
I was a couple of videos behind. I just watched the one today about your oak trees, and I'm about two videos missed in the last 2 years, so it
You know,
wouldn't have been.
the last one was the oak trees. The one before that, I'm speaking about Wittgenstein.
Yeah, I skipped the last one because I only had 15 minutes before we were going to talk, so I just watched the
Oh,
short
okay.
one.
When you listen to that one, you'll really grasp more of what I've been trying to express for all these years. It's absolutely fascinating, and what I say is that what's happened is the world has been hijacked by language, and people's worlds is in actual fact the projection of words. Like when they see trees, they just go tree and then dismiss it. They don't pursue it any further, like a scientist or like a philosopher, and so they would never know what that sort of tree is. In actual fact, if you ask people walking down the street what sort of tree that is, the chances are 1 in 100 will know, even only a few trees, because they've never paid the attention because they've stopped at tree. Like if they see a bird flying in the sky, oh, it's a bird. They don't inquire as to what bird. They don't listen for the intonation of the language of the bird or anything like that because they're not interested. You see, because people live in the world of language. They don't live in the world of things.
Mm, yes, yes. It's very complex subject, and I don't really know much about it, but I just thought I'd bring it up because it seemed like you are on a different wavelength, and it could be attributed to that. I mean, everybody's different, but you're vastly different to a majority, and I don't know, maybe it was something like that. I wanted to ask something else too. Now, I remember in a previous video, you were trying to shake everybody to say, you reach out to me and come and talk to me or whatever. What's holding you back? For goodness sakes, the world's in a mess right now. We're on the precipice of the World War III, and I've been thinking about that, and I thought, well, hang on, is that your is that you projecting what's going on in your head on as a mirror to the world? Are you seeing the world like that?
Well, our worlds are created by what we perceive. And if people are down the proverbial rabbit hole in conspiracy theories, and the Jews are doing all this and the Jews are doing all that, well, that's going to be their world, and then they would read the conspiracy into everything that they listen to, whether it's politicians or whether it's um, I don't know, basic stuff about society and culture and all those sort of things. Conspiratorial minds are investigating a bit like a diseased mind. And I said many, many years ago, when I went down the rabbit hole, I realized that. It was a very, very dangerous arena. And what I started to discover subsequently, speaking to people on YouTube, was that many people had been down these rabbit holes many years and they probably would never come out, i.e., flat earthers. It's impossible to get a flat earther to look at the world in any other way except flat. Like it's impossible for a Muslim to see the world outside of their dogma, or a Christian, any of these indoctrinations. And so people's minds, which are susceptible to hypnosis, which is only about 5%, by the way. When I took my hypnosis qualification, it was very apparent that I wasn't remotely hypnotizable because my mind was uh, too questioning. I question everything, but when you've got people very susceptible to hypnosis, they don't question nothing. They just take it on board. They just believe. And so, if you have a person like this that falls down the rabbit hole, they will never come out. Now, to answer your question, um, no, I don't think the world is about to end. I don't think we're on the precipice of anything. I use emotive language lots of times to stir people in some.
Yeah. So my intuition was telling me that you are not thinking the world is messed up. It's you were just saying that to try and stir
Yeah,
some people up.
because very often I'm telling the viewer that the world is perfect. I think the world is perfect. I don't
Well,
think.
yes, you do that. You do that as well. So that was something I'd forgotten about. Now you've say that, I'm like, yeah, that's right. You do say that. Everything's happening for exact reason. It needs to happen. Everything's perfect. The world is perfect, and yes, you do say that a lot. So it's difficult sometimes to get your flow because you're contradicting yourself quite a lot,
Yeah,
and unless you've like got a photographic or a recording memory, you're going to forget things that you've said and then get triggered by something you say. When really, I do remember now. Yes, you would, and it's anyway. That answers that question. Um,
well, again,
so
I'd like to pursue that a little bit more because, again, it's really important. I am very
okay,
paradoxical because I'm a reflection of the cosmos. The cosmos is a paradox. And so, because I don't have any horses in any race, I'm not interested if there is a third world war, whether the whole world obliterates, whether one side wins and then we're all under the yoke of one creed, or whether the robots take over in 10 years time and they're all policing us and this, that, and the other. I'm I've got a very peculiar state of consciousness which enables me to be absolutely free, not to feel a victim, not to feel imprisoned, not to feel anything, because I don't believe in the body. I don't believe in the physical world. I know that I am eternal consciousness, and I'm just having a total recall experience here. And so, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not investing emotion into it. So therefore, I can
yeah,
play. And one video, I will tell you that I'm a Jew, and my name, Aaron Berry. They're both Jewish names, and I have a great allegiance with the Jewish perspective and their agenda on all that, because I don't have any allegiance with stupid people, because I'm an elitist. My consciousness is up there with those elitists, and I see what they see, and I know that the man in the street most certainly has to be put under the yoke, has to be under hypnosis, and has to be controlled. It's not possible for humanity to be free. They wouldn't know what the fuck to do if they were free. It'd be complete chaos. And so this is why I'm always saying it's perfect. And I see the perfection of it. Whereas people on my channel, when I start speaking, like this, oh, the Jews are doing this and the Jews, they're trying to control us and they're going to manipulate us. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, bro, stop, stop, stop. Certain human beings on this planet have been doing this forever. It's a human trait. Someone is going to take the fucking helm because the vast majority of people are fucking retards. Now, look at Rome. Rome was exactly the same, manipulating the people with bread and fucking circus. That was 2,000 years ago, man. It's no different. Somebody's got to do it. The Jews weren't doing it then, the Romans were doing it then. you know. And because of certain things like the Second World War, then the Jews said never again, and they was absolutely determined that it would never ever happen to them. And that's what changed the course, you see, because everybody else continued to be fast asleep, where the Jews are absolutely awake and they know exactly what they're doing. And so it could have been anyone, but it was them because they felt so persecuted.
Okay, that's good to hear. Something else I wanted was been on my mind. You mentioned it a few week or so ago. I mean, I'm just trying to bring up stuff that's recent too. I don't want to be dwelling on things you said 2 years ago or whatever. So this was recently. You are mentioned that you've been trying to hunt or search for talks with highly intelligent people. You drop names and want to speak with certain echelons of people in social media that have got vast audiences, and you'd like to speak with them because they're intelligent, and you think you would be able to either destroy them completely or have intelligent discussions with them. So, and then you would say, but it seems at this point all I'm getting is people with mental illnesses and people who have been sectioned, and that seems to be just what I'm getting at the moment. And you seem a bit disappointed, but you're just dealing with it. Now, I'm thinking that possibly, I don't know if you're aware of the theory of like reality creation.
The what
Is that
creation?
reality creation?
Uh,
Whereas, you give an example, if you are going to attempt a task and you think positively about it, you get a positive outcome. But if you're thinking negative about it, it will be affected. The
okay, a bit like the law of
the
attraction.
energies, yeah, the energies around you will cause a negative outcome because you've
Yeah.
been ruminating on that. So I'm thinking, is it possible that you're thinking that you're all you're getting is people that are mentally unstable and mentally ill? You're thinking that, and you're thinking, I'm not having conversations with highly intelligent people. I'm not having, so the cosmos, in a sense, as far as reality creation theory goes, is seeing your emotional state as thinking, oh, I'm not having conversations with the intelligent people, so it'll just continue to not give you that, and it will continue to the state of I'm only getting this, and the cosmos goes, well, he's thinking that emotionally, that's must be what he wants, and it gives that to you.
Yes, yes.
What do you think of that?
I'm very familiar with that process, and I'm an adherent of it. I am an adherent that we create our reality via the projection of our thoughts. And if I incessantly say that I am only attracting lunatics and unintelligent people, then that is probably what I'm going
What's
to.
going to be given to you? You're going to manifest it.
Yes.
So why don't you manifest intelligent people to talk to you,
Well,
since you know and understand that concept?
yeah. Now let us have a look then at what goes on this channel. The vast majority of my viewers seem to be unemployed because my videos are like reading a book or watching a sitcom. They're a lineage. And if you're going to be grasping one particular video, then you're going to need to have listened to a good number of videos prior, because I'm not the sort of content provider which starts giving you the A to Z about a particular subject. Hey guys, if you want to learn how to astral project, here's what you must do. 5 things what you must do to astral project. It's all in a nutshell, and then anyone
And
can.
don't forget, sign up to my Patreon.
Yeah, yeah. Sign up to my Patreon and smash that like button and subscribe because it helps the channel and blah blah blah. I'm just not into this hypnosis bullshit. I find it abhorrent. I don't do that. What I've always wanted to seek, I didn't want to seek subscribers. I didn't want to seek to earn a living from it. That's not my bag. Because what I'm looking for is people of like mind who can sit and have a conversation like we're doing now and pose questions which are stimulating to me, and you've done that already with all of the questions. And so now I'm thinking my mind just goes off and I could pursue those questions for the
Yeah.
entirety of, because everything is so deep as far as I'm concerned. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for money. I don't need the money. I'm not looking for friends. I don't need friends. I'm looking for intelligent conversation because my mind enjoys that level of stimulation. And
You're
so,
trying to get knowledge. You're trying to get knowledge, yeah?
well, I
Knowledge.
mean,
You're seeking knowledge.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not knowledge for knowledge's sake. It's kind of like um, I feel like I'm an alien. I feel like I've come here to crack this nut. What actually is going on planet
All right.
Earth. And so this is
All
why
right.
I've done this intense research for this past 18 years, non-stop,
Yeah.
and I'll probably never ever stop, because my quest from the very, very beginning, one man's quest to understand, you probably remember. And so that's it. That's what it's all about. And so I was always saying when I was making my videos and getting no response or very little, and if I did get response, it wasn't on point. And I'm like, do you get what I'm saying here, guys? Because it doesn't seem like it in the comments. Now, 18 years on, I've gone through many, many frustrating times, and I effed them blind, and I blustered, and this and the other. About 4 years ago, I went through a period for about 2 years whereby I was exceedingly obnoxious in that. Now I've resigned myself because I've learned more about why people are like this, and I've come to see myself as very, very different. And so I can't continue to chastise people because I'm an oddball, because it's me that's the weirdo, me that's the strange,
Yeah.
you know? And so I'm looking for the weirdos, I'm looking for the strange ones. And it's
Well,
significant.
I've got some weird ones for you. I have got some weird ones for you. I don't know if you've been paying attention to my comments in your videos
Well,
of
I
late.
always try, don't I?
You do respond, but I'm not sure how much you're retaining it or
Oh,
getting a
okay.
picture of what are you thinking. Oh, he seems to have stepped up in that realm, or he seems to have connected. And I'm just not sure if how much of it you're retaining. Are you building up profiles in your mind of your viewers when they make comments, or do you just sort of just ignore it and just write a comment and forget about it? Or
No, no, I'm honing in to who knows what without a shadow of a doubt.
okay,
And I've mentioned to you in the comments that I always have an allegiance with what you say because you're always on point. You
I'm
express.
sometimes a lot of the time I'm off, but it's because I'm not I'm just not on that level yet. But then I'll go and ruminate about it and think about it, and then come back and oh yeah, I see where you're coming from there, and I can come around. Some things I haven't been able to come around, but might get into that later.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so that's good. Good. I just wasn't sure where you were with how you were building profiles on your viewers because
yes.
you don't have a lot of comments. And I was thinking, yeah, before you used to have 30,000 subscribers. I can't imagine how you would have kept track of who was who back then.
No, and I don't know how I did. I think what was going on back in the day that we had a good crew, and it was like a little fraternity, and there'd be all these others in the periphery just making noise, but there was myself and about 20 others around the world.
Oh, so it was a smaller group that were in on that same level, and you
Yeah,
were sort of, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, and there was a lot of background noise.
yeah,
Okay, so would you mind now if I just go on to me now? I've sort of
yeah,
covered a couple of things with you, um, because I just wanted to explain what I've been going through. And last time we spoke, I was a bit all over the place, and I tried to. Well, some people don't probably don't want to go back and watch that, so I've tried to cut it down just to get a very quick, brief explanation of what's happened to me. And because I've grown the last, 8 months or 12 months since I spoke to you, and I wanted to say what's happened, and uh, I think I need to build that base as well. And I'm not expecting people to go back and watch the video. Just try and give a brief. I don't know. It'll probably be about 20 minutes.
yeah.
But
Go.
so when I was very very young, and I'm talking like about um, between the ages of maybe 5, 7 years old, very young, too young to be away from the house, leaving the house. I mean, my upbringing was totally different to yours. I lived, just with a regular family, two siblings and two parents, and vastly different to your upbringing. And but for me, being out of the house was not a thing I would do by myself. So anyway, I remember having an argument with my mother when I was about around this age, 5 years, a tantrum of some sorts. I don't know, remember the nature of it, but then I remember I just don't want to be in this house anymore because I'm not getting my own way. So I just wandered out of the house and started to wander up the street. And I shouldn't have been doing that. And near my house over the hill was a large forest area. And if I'd ventured into there, I don't know if I would have come back. But anyway, I was determined to get out of the house, and I was, suppose, running away in a sense, for
Mhm.
as much as a 5-year-old could understand it. And as I was walked out the front driveway and up the footpath, I encountered a very strange phenomenon, and I've drawn a picture of it, which I want you to look at. So here it is here. Can you see that at all?
Yeah, like a spider on the road,
Well, it's actually
an
a
ant.
giant ant, an ant. Now, it
So,
was bigger than me.
did you say you drew that?
I drew this picture, yes. I mean, photoshopped it.
Photoshopped it? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very good picture. It's very lifelike.
Well, thank you. But the point is, this thing was bigger than me.
Right.
Now, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't frightened at the time, and I wasn't having imaginary friends or any. I never had imaginary friends or strange mental disorders when I was very young. But this was something very strange, and when I saw it, it was blocking the path, and I was just thought, this is not normal. I've never seen an ant this big. I wasn't afraid, wasn't scared, but I sort of got this message in my head just to say, go back, go back, go. A soft, loving, maternal voice or feeling in my head to say, you must go back, you must go back. And I just went back home, which was only this driveway
Wow.
here.
Right.
So I didn't get far before it stopped me. And I went back into the house to my mother and I said, there's a huge ant outside. Come and have a look. And of course, I'm thinking it's like an inch long and that's big. No,
Yeah.
this was massive. Now, as I said, I never had imaginary friends or strange visions or anything when I was young. So, what do you think that was?
Hmm.
What would,
Oh, goodness me. I wouldn't really know where to begin to
mm,
speculate other than having some sort of um, Um, an unconscious fantasy fear of the monsters in the outside world, because, as you said, you'd never ventured out, and so
But I was determined to go. I wasn't scared. I was going out of that house. I was leaving. I didn't want to be there anymore after
yeah,
that temper tantrum. And this just appeared. There was no fear when I even saw it. There was no fear.
yeah. Oh,
What I think is some sort of cosmic event that made me go back home because I was not meant to venture off.
yeah, I mean, lots of reasons as to why maybe the mind could have, created that and give you that to turn you around, to keep you out of harm's way and all these other sorts of things. I mean, it's completely open to speculation. But since then, you have had some sort of mental episodes, and so
Yes, much old once. I'm much older. Yes.
yeah, could you imagine that that was the very, very onset of some sort of um, mental vision?
Yes, possibly. But it just
Hallucination.
the whole scenario, it's very strange that that happened to appear right at that moment when I was trying to run away, and it's like it stopped me and beckoned me, or not beckoned me, but sort of invited me to go away and go back home. Sort of, it
Ah,
just I'm not sure but why that would have happened in that scenario. Anyway, I'll
no, no,
just move on from that.
don't move on, don't move on, because in the picture, the ant is facing away from you. This is really important.
Yes, that's the way it was. Yes,
So it
but it
was,
sort of had its head slightly cocked towards me to sort of look because the eyes are on the side of the head. So it was sort of I didn't have a picture of that. So it was sort of slightly looking at me from, but yes, it was facing away from me. Yeah,
but
very well pointed out.
wasn't positioned then as if it was a threat to you or was about to attack you.
No,
And so,
no.
therefore, there's no reason why you would have been overtly afraid of it. And so, that's very curious as to why you saw it in that position. Because if it was
Mm.
a terror thing, then you would have thought it would have been a full frontal and it would have been very intimidating. But to see something like that would be more curious than intimidating.
Yes, I was curious. I was not afraid. I was just like, that's really strange. It's so big. I've never seen one that big before. It was quite odd. But then I got this feeling to just go back home. I don't need to be there. I need to go back. Just calm down. Go back to your mother. That's what it was sort of transmitting that sort of message into my head telepathically, if
Right.
that makes any sense.
Well,
And yeah, I don't. And as I said, didn't have imaginary friends. I didn't have really overactive imagination. Never saw anything like that again. Um, the only other thing I remember from that sort of age, you know, younger than 10 years old, I always had strange hypnagogic dreams. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what that means, it means you're sort of like you're not in fully dream state. You're in a partial sleep where you're starting to drift off into 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 deep sleep, but you're sort of still semi-conscious, like you know you're lying in bed, but you're sort of really deeply visualizing stuff. Anyway, I would have these hypnagogic dreams when I was very young of being like some sort of huge person to the point where I was as big as a planet, and I would move my arms around in this dream state, and I could feel like I was pushing mountains and seas and huge amounts of matter. I was moving around with my arms, and it was like I could just move my arm, and entire continents would move. It was like I was shaping a planet or something. And that I had a lot of dreams like that. But it was always the same dream. I just felt like I had this immense power where I could move things with my arms. So that's just something I wanted to bring up because it was very strange that those so and I'm not sure if that was something I was remembering from before I was born or something, a
Mm.
memory. I don't know if you were into past lives or anything like that. I certainly don't have any past life experience.
Oh,
But are you any
yeah, I'm certainly an adherent of being an old soul and having lived many lives.
past?
Uh,
Okay. So to
I
me, that felt like I was remembering a past experience of not being a person, but being a god in
yeah,
that sense.
yeah, being a creator, molding
Yeah.
as to how you thought it should be, having that sort of power. I mean, these things, they can be fantasies. They can uh, be developed from feeling very emasculated as a young child, no power, not listened to. Then, of course, Freud would always say that dreams are wish fulfillments, and so we would do all the things in our dreams that we couldn't do in our reality. And so, if you were feeling very um, emasculated of any power, let's say, as a young child under the jurisdiction of parents, and if you
Hmm.
had a yearning to be more powerful and free, then your dreams would give you these sort of things. So, what do you feel about that?
Well, I don't remember feeling like that. It was pretty sort of easygoing childhood at that age, apart from the odd temper tantrums. But well, that's possible. But it's just a feeling that I'd never experienced since then, and it's sort of those dreams faded away once I got older, and I actually got that feeling back again. But that's further down the track with after getting a bit more mentally unstable later in life. I had that feeling come back. Um, I'll probably get into that in a bit later.
Yeah.
So that was just a couple of points about being when I was very young. Some strange things I remember. Um, Now I just wanted to sort of try and bring up the next part of my life, which had an effect on me, and it's probably still affecting me at this point. Um, I wasn't having a very good life at high school. It was a very hard time for young people, high school, as most people would know. For me, it affected me quite severely. I mean, there was instances where I was held at knife point by classmates, and this is when the teacher would just leave the room, and then they'd all crowd around me and they'd start tormenting me, and with knives and stuff, and that happened quite a lot. And there was one point where the teacher was actually present while I was being bullied, and the teacher was laughing at the same time. And at that point, I just completely gave up. This is some sort of joke that, I can't even get help from a teacher. And so, anyway, I spent my whole high school just living in fear, basically, and being afraid of everyone and everything. Could possibly any time I could be jumped on and have my life threatened. It was awful. And so I became suicidal and didn't end up taking my life. I didn't want to upset my parents. That was the only thing that was stopping me. Anyway, moving on from that, I as I got older, so high school, that's when you get up to about 16. And then about 4 years later, I had enough of life, and I didn't really want to participate anymore. So I started smoking cannabis quite extensively for a few years, but I was having experiences with cannabis that other people don't have. I was, hallucinating. Where most people don't hallucinate when they take cannabis. I abused that for several years, and then I took one trip of LSD with some friends, And at the time, that became a very extremely bad trip. And you'd probably see straight away why everybody was turning demons around me because of what was happening in my past. It was all, in the background there, all building up. And so, but at the time, people are turning into demons in front of me in the street in the city because we went out to the city at that night, and people turning into demons. That's not what's supposed to be happening on an LSD trip. Anyway, I didn't know at the time it was because of my past coming up. So anyway, that sort of unlocked pathways in my brain, which will happen with people that take LSD. They open up new pathways in their brain. So that happened, and I started getting all sorts of strange inventions in my head, like how to trap a soul inside a computer, and building all sorts of strange things that are all technical based. But I was having amazing ideas and stuff because I think this LSD unlocked parts of my brain that I wouldn't have normally had contact with. Anyway, I still continued smoking um, for a few years after that, and I was getting um, not really anywhere in life, and I was just living with drug dealers actually, and getting free drugs. Just didn't take any more LSD. One was enough for me, and then I got to the point where I was standing in the kitchen just thinking, oh, my life is just an absolute mess. It's just not going anywhere. And then I remembered from when I was younger where I had a lot of hay fever, allergies, skin problems, and they were really, really horrible times. But I remember thinking to myself, well, it was better to have those bad times in my life than no experience of anything, like either nothing or have extreme pain and suffering. What's better? Well, at least pain and suffering, you've got something. If you got nothing, you got nothing. So I was being very thankful all of a sudden for experiencing these horrible things in my childhood. Um, and then I went outside into and sat in the chair under a tree. Now I got a picture of that too. So I looked up into the tree that was overhanging a little fish pond up into the tree, and I started vibrating, and I got to this point. I should have sorry. Yeah, here. This is what this is what actually happened. I don't know if you can see that, or if I
Mm,
need to bring it closer.
yeah.
So this is me sitting in the chair, and every cell in my brain and body is connecting with every part of that tree. And I sat like that for about a minute and a half, and my whole body was just vibrating. It was like I was having an orgasm for like a minute and a half,
Yeah.
but it was with the tree, not with a person.
Hmm.
So I didn't ejaculate or anything like that. It was just my body was just like throbbing, like a most amazing, blissful feeling. Just couldn't imagine any drug would even get close to that. So I mentioned this to you a while ago, and you said this was something like a samadhi experience. Is this what that is?
Well, you've read my book, yeah?
No,
No.
no, I
Okay.
haven't read it. No.
Right. In my book, I speak about an experience which, like you've just described, and I've spoken about it many times. When I was lying on the couch, I'm just come out of meditation where I listened to 432 hertz for an hour, and then whilst I'm just opening my eyes and coming back, I'm just looking at this mural behind me, and then I saw Jesus, face of Jesus. Yeah, have you heard me speaking about that?
I heard speaking about that, yes.
Yeah, because I've spoken about it many
And
times.
and you experienced unconditional love, right? Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Yes.
and it was the vibration, the bliss, and tears streaming down the cheeks, and like I don't know, 50 or 100 orgasms all over the body.
Yeah.
Um, And then I speak about that the sensation was very similar to the vibrations that you get before you have an out of body experience. Because what happens is when you are about to leave the body, you get waves rushing up and down, and they start at your toes and they come up to your head and they go back down. It's like you're in a wave machine, only the waves of energy and they're big and they're strong and they're powerful and they go
Mm.
woof, 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 and you just lie there trembling and you're conscious and you think, oh, and then you enter into some sort of a blissful state. And then the orgasm is whereby you're trembling and vibrating so much, just like I remembered when I first started to masturbate. I didn't know what it was, but I remembered, touching my cock when I was in the bath about 14 years old, that it would feel really good. And I was scared of it because I never had sexual education or anything like that. And I would touch it to a point whereby I would start to tremble and go like this, and then I would stop because I thought that I might die. Um,
Classic.
the ignorance. No wonder
You're very
that.
good at explaining things, at describing things. You should write a book.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, I wrote a book. It's 650 pages, but no one's fucking read it.
Yeah. Um, so
So,
so that experience, I didn't do any premeditation for that. All I did was being very thankful for even the pain in my life, and then I just went out, sat down, and it was like I connected to this tree and everything around it. If that makes any sense. And
well,
my eyes were open the whole time. I didn't have a conversation with any beings or anything like that, but it was just pretty amazing.
were there any voices in your head? Were you crying
No,
or?
no, but I just remember it felt very, very blissful, very, like you said, like 50 orgasms all at once. And
Yeah,
I was about 24 at the time. So that was a strange experience that just sort of came out of nowhere. And I had not done much research into um, spiritual happenings. I was brought up an atheist essentially.
yeah,
And anyway, so at that point, I was having very strange thoughts and seeing strange things going on. Like again, some people I knew were they were like a demon in my life, and I would have to try and um, avoid them, or I would have to try and not make them angry. People who I knew, and I saw this big orb above my bed one night that was like a spinning orb, and it was like pulsating, like the universe was expanding and contracting to nothing, expanding, contracting. I was just watching it there, and then eventually I was doing all sorts of weird stuff, like walking all around the streets and looking for UFOs and stuff. At that point, I decided to give up cannabis, and they do say cannabis is actually an antipsychotic. So I think what happened was I stopped taking cannabis, and then the psychotic episode happened, and I ended up having um, there's just a very big downward spiral to the point where I had massive ego death and sold everything I owned, gave away all the money. So I was giving away hundreds of dollars on the street to just strangers. And then I went and had that experience. I don't know if you remember, I had to try to bring someone back to life who died on a bus, and they tried to fight me, and I was getting flung around like there was strings attached to me, and they were fighting me and punching me and stuff and kicking me, and I didn't even feel it. I guess you get people on methadone who have have that same sort of thing. But all I'd done was just stop smoking cannabis a couple of weeks beforehand. But anyway, then I got committed, and then the talk started of electric shock treatment. I thought, oh, I better act a bit normal, stop stop spiraling out of control and rambling and ranting to everybody because they're now talking about shock treatment. And I thought, well, I got to get a grip on this, so I sort of contained it. And then I got out after a few weeks, and then I was um, just trying to keep calm. Anyway, then I sat down. I drew a picture. Well, where are we? Where are we? Let me go back to this picture. I drew this,
Right.
and I didn't know anything about Illuminati. This is the 90s. There wasn't any internet. Early 90s. It wasn't internet. It wasn't this sort of thing. Go and look up and watch YouTube videos about it. I didn't read any books about it. All I had from when I was a kid, maybe doing a bit of studies on pyramids, and you'd see hieroglyphics or something in a book. Never really studied anything. So I drew this, and then years later, I find out that this is like the Eye of Providence. Is that what it is?
All seeing eye.
Is that that? Is
Yeah,
that
the
what
all
that is?
seeing eye of the Illuminati.
You sure that's just the Illuminati? Because I
What?
think they adopted that symbol.
Well, I mean, it's ancient. It's ancient. It
Yes,
so many
they
cultures.
didn't invent it. They
No.
didn't invent it. No, they
Yeah.
just adopted it.
But
Okay.
you've got this all-seeing eye from Greece. You know, the evil eye. It's supposed to ward off evil. I mean, obviously, the eye, perceiving and seeing, is been in cultural mythologies forever. But it's very curious that you drew the triangle with the eye in it, and then all the rays coming from it. Um,
Okay, I'll show you where I got it from. It's you put your hands together like this, and then you put your face to the side,
right,
and then looking forward. So can you see that? That's where I got it from.
right.
Am I showing up or not?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I did that in the mirror, and I drew that based on that. So this is this
Right.
one-eye covered thing, you know. Oh,
That
anyway,
that
I didn't know anything about that stuff, and this just came to me out of the
the,
blue.
the bottom part's your nose, then, is it?
This is the nose, yeah. This is that on the side, and then there's the eye, but it looks like a fish as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it does looks like a fish as well. Um,
Yeah. So I didn't know anything about
well,
this
you see all
Illuminati, and
these, yeah, all these
you see
things.
these things and you take them in subconsciously. Okay, fair enough.
No,
Okay. So
Jason. All
yes.
these things, it seems like you're delving into the collective unconscious because all these things are emblems from the collective unconscious for thousands and thousands of years of humanity. And so there's a part of you which is contacting that sort of stuff with your visions and everything like that. And I said in the video the other day, I said it's a very fine line between schizophrenia, supposedly an illness, and visions of um, collective unconsciousness. Coming from outside of everyday, ordinary, closed down consciousness, because it's very Jungian. It's very archetypal. It's symbolic. It's the sort of thing that the alchemists would draw and use, and it's all that sort of symbolism. It's powerful symbolism. That's why the Illuminati have used it for so
No,
long.
that's right. Yeah. So I thought, yeah, maybe I have connected to something outside of, well, say outside of myself is a bit strange, but yeah, the collective unconscious, is that what you
Mhm.
said, or the
Yeah.
collective consciousness, the collective unconscious? Picked it up somehow through that. So anyway, as I mentioned, it went through ego, death, gave away with money, ended up in the psych ward, and then at that point there, I realised, well, if I continue on this path, I'm going to end up like it's not the way society would expect me to be. So I pretty much shut it down. Anytime I had thoughts of seeing anything spiritual or any sort of weird thoughts about other people, I would shut it down. I would shut it down, and in the end, I got to the point where I sort of closed it all off. So I was just your basic normal drone at that point, And then I went and got it, finished my university degree, and then so it's around 2000, 2002. Then got a
The
job,
What did you take the degree in?
computers,
Ah,
computing.
yeah.
Yeah, at first I wanted to be an architect. That's something to do with the building world stuff, but then I sort of drifted into computer computer related activities and architecture. I was doing architecture, but then I was gravitating towards the computer design aspect of it, and I sort of drifted away from the architecture and went more down the computer IT route. And I finished my degree. Um, so a couple of years after I actually, came out of hospital, got myself sort of straight again. I wasn't taking any more drugs at this point, and hadn't been for several years. And then I got a job and worked for 20 years in IT. Earned a lot of money, and then so what are we up to? Then of course 2021 comes around, and you've got the whole COVID business happening, and I started going down these conspiracy rabbit holes while I was working. So I was working all day and then all night researching all these conspiracy theories. And I went pretty deep for that and lost a lot of sleep. Ended up having another ego death, so it all came back. The whole schizophrenia thing came back, and so then I actually had about $100,000 in my bank by that stage, and I was millimeters away from just giving it all away, just to people on the street again. The same thing that happened 25 years ago, because the money just didn't mean anything to me. It was just like, this is not what life is supposed to be. It's not money, and I just wanted to get rid of it. But something in me went, no, if you do that, then everybody else is going to have to look after you, and you're not going to be of use to anyone. So I sort of stopped myself, pulled myself out of that. But did have that ego death, whereas like nothing matters. Does that make sense to you, Aaron? What I'm talking about?
Well, there's aspects of it that relate to certain things, but if you say, does it make sense? Um, well, I mean, people's minds invariably never make sense. It doesn't matter whether they are clinically suffering or whether they're supposed to be normies. People's minds invariably don't make sense. Were you actually labelled as being schizophrenic, or what label did they bless you with when they diagnosed you?
When the first episode I had, the prior 20 years, back in mid 90s, was drug induced paranoid schizophrenia.
Right.
Drug induced.
Yeah. And
Um,
so,
now, go on.
since you stopped taking drugs, have you had any episodes? Have you relapsed?
When I stopped, that's when I started getting all the episodes. When I stopped taking drugs, because
Right.
I think the cannabis was masking any schizophrenic episodes, because I have heard people say it's an antipsychotic itself. Then when I stopped, that's when I started having episodes, and it full blown schizophrenic episodes were happening once I'd given up. So the first time I gave up, well, when I did give up, it's 1998, and then I'd stopped smoking cannabis. Sorry, I'm a bit scattered because you threw me off there. So then 20 years later, after I calmed down for 20 years, then I had another schizophrenic breakdown and the ego death, where I was going to give away all my money that I'd earned for the last 20 years, because it just meant nothing to me. It's just like completely pointless. I'd not been taking any drugs for 25 years at that point. And then what happened was I got over that particular episode, decided I was going to quit my job and try and find myself, doing different things, and was sort of like okay for another 2 years, and then and then after about another 2 years, so this is about 2023 now, only 3 years ago, I started remembering all the stuff from my past from when I was a kid, and thought, well, I've been carrying all that weight all my life, and hating those people that did that to me, and being the victim. And so I decided, well, I'm not going to be a victim anymore. I'm going to forgive them for what they did to me. They must have done it for some reason. They could have been unhappy with their home life, and they're taking it out on me. I don't know. I've done bad things, and I thought I had good reasons to do it. So everyone has their reasons. So I forgave them for it, and all of a sudden things started changing for me, and I didn't have so much hatred in my heart, and I started realizing that the forgiveness is really powerful. You see, and then I had been sort of working on that part of myself for a while, and then I ended up going outside um, one night late at night. I sort of had a bit of a revelation in the fact that I remember why things I was doing to try and protect myself, and then I got up out of bed and went outside, and I stood outside, and then this came from behind me. It was about 12 foot high. Can you see that?
Yeah.
What does that look like to you?
It looks like an Indian totem pole.
Yeah, that was it was in the night time, like after midnight, came behind me and sort of sat on my shoulders like a protector. So I think it sort of looked a bit like that. And they
Right.
actually call them thunderbirds. The American Indian culture called them thunderbirds. That's what gods they are. So, so I didn't know anything about that sort of stuff, and I just saw this is what I saw. And I've taken drugs since 1995. 1998. So this is still in my head. This is not drug caused hallucinations, like taking any drugs and seeing hallucinations. This is actually still happening. So anyway, that happened, and then I was in the backyard for a couple of hours, and I was doing all sorts of strange connections, like I was connecting to Indian, Native American Indian cultures, and Aboriginal cultures, and Maori cultures, which is New Zealand, and I was becoming those people, and I was dancing around in the dark in the backyard, not naked, but just like with no shoes on, acting out all these ancient events and dancing and singing, and then I had this um, whole experience of the colonization coming through and wiping out all these cultures, and it was all about the king and doing it in the name of Jesus Christ, and how I was just hating all that for happening that way. And it's hard to explain, but I was having a very strange experience in the backyard for a few hours, and then I had a dream a few days after that. In the morning, I woke up and then went back to sleep. I saw how the universe unfolded it in front of me into 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions of time, and then that spread out to multiverses. I could see this all happening, and it laid out like um, a big flat plane of all 4D dimensions, all multiverses, and then that wrapped into a huge tube, and that tube then turned into a big donut, like a torus. But the skin then was like a snake skin. It was like the Ouroboros, and I think we talked about this last time. It was like the Ouroboros was a huge rainbow serpent, and that skin was all different universes all around its skin. And then I could see inside the tube. I could go in there and see that it was like being inside the tunnel of light that people had the NDEs.
Mm-hmm.
They described that, and then I would come out again, and I could see the whole thing, and I could go down and fly around, and then choose a different point in time, a universe, and a point in time, and then I'd come out, and I remember having a thought. My brain went, oh, if only I knew how to build a device that would let me fly around this thing, then I could pick any point in the universe in any point in time. With the billions and billions of multiverses, you could go anywhere and do anything and be anyone, jump into anybody at any point in time. Anyway, I had that dream, and it just sort of solidified as a way of how the universe is sort of, or the multiverses are all structured. And it's actually a torus shape. So that happened, and then a few months later, I had another I suppose samadhi experience where I was expecting a really scary phone call from a family member about some news, and I started throwing myself into a downward spiral of they're going to say this is going to happen. But I thought, no, why don't I just use what I've been learning the last few months about reality creation, and thought, well, why don't I just imagine it being a positive outcome? And I did that. And while I was waiting for the call back, then I sat down in the chair and was closed my eyes to meditate. And then I felt like within 30 seconds, I felt like my eyes were moving really fast around behind my eyelids, and my whole body froze. And then I felt like, well, I'm asleep, but I can I'm awake. I mean, I'm sort of conscious, but I know my body's asleep or something. And I tried to open my eyes and move my body, and it was like everything was like in slow motion. And then this happened. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Can you see what's going on there?
Yes, you got
So I'm
roots
having
going.
this another thing where all the light beams are going outside, and my hands. Oh, what happened?
Oh
Just lost connection.
no, it's there. You're there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hang on. I'm sorry. Am I back?
Yeah, you're there. You never went away.
No, I had all these notifications pop up about on the go notifications for this app. I'm sorry. So yeah, that happened to my arms, and they went down through the floor like tree roots, and then it was like lightning going through my whole body. It was the same orgasmic feeling that I had earlier, and anyway, that happened for like a couple of minutes, and it was because I did that small meditation. Now, I wasn't a big meditation person. It was just something I thought I'll just close my eyes and think positive outcome as if it would really happen. And I never really meditated. And then that happens. So I'm getting all these extremely bizarre experiences. Now, it's probably a lot to do with the LSD and cannabis I took when I was younger, but I don't do any meditation and stuff like that. So I don't know why I'm getting these experiences like this. I mean, I know people have, would meditate for 20 years to get that type of experience. Would you
Yeah,
not agree?
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and it's just happening for me
Right,
for
spontaneously.
with no training at all.
What I want to do is I want to take 2 minutes for toilet break. I'm just going to make a milky coffee. Then I'll come back and then I want to ask you some questions about that. So leave that picture up there because I've got a few questions in relation to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So 2 minutes. I'll be back. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So just leave the screen up. I'm just going to put it on pause. Okay. Right. So You create these pictures using AI, yeah?
Yeah, just to try and help explain, because to try and vocalize that, it's I don't think people would get the full. I wouldn't be able to explain it properly.
No, and so it's an
I think that
amazing,
would help.
yeah, it's an amazing facility that we have, and it's a very curious facility, and it opens up a whole new conversation. Now, when you go onto this AI and you say, uh, create me a picture of me sitting in the chair with beams of light coming out in all directions from my head, it will give you
Yeah.
so many suggestions, and then you'll choose one. Yeah.
No, I was just using Gemini because I don't have an account, an AI account. So this is Google Gemini, and it'll give you one picture. It takes about 2 minutes, and it'll give you one picture. And then if it's not right, I just tweak the input, change a few things. But that's really only short paragraph there.
Yeah. Okay. And then what did you say to it exactly to get it to produce those roots coming
That
from?
would be draw a picture of me sitting on an armchair at the with the front of the chair with my with the back with a purse. Draw a man with the back straight, sitting at the front of the chair, arms pointing down, arms turning into tree roots growing through the floor, and beams of light coming out of the head. It's daytime, and the beams of light are going out the window. It doesn't get it perfect. Like there wasn't really beams coming inside. It was all going outside. But
Yeah.
I
But
mean, I did it 20 times, and that's as close as I could get it to look to
yeah.
get the message across.
But when you look at
So,
these sort of pictures, do you feel anything uncanny? Do you feel that there's something there which is your consciousness? Do you think it's an extension of your consciousness? How do you think that these computers generate these things like this?
well, if you just say draw a picture of a man sitting in an armchair
Jesse,
next to a window,
stop.
so
Yeah, I'm not speaking about the very, very practical realm of this. I'm speaking about look. When I look at that, what it tells me that that is an extension of my consciousness. The computers are an extension of my consciousness, of cosmic consciousness. It isn't what people may think is numbers being crunched and this, that, and the other. It's an extension of consciousness. And when I look at that, I can see that that is every bit of reality as everything else that I've ever seen. In my life, and when you see these pictures, when you ask AI to create a picture of a dog or something. Have you seen this picture where the woman's handbag is a dog's head, and then the lamppost is like a dog, and there's dogs all over this picture. Now AI creates that. It's very surreal. It's very uncanny. It disturbs you because I know deep down that it is my consciousness. It's another facet of my consciousness that's doing that. So the reason why I'm asking you this is because look, when you say, "Does that make sense?" Of course, it doesn't make sense. I mean, y- these things make sense if you said you were on drugs. When you're not on
yeah,
drugs, it doesn't make any sense unless you start
no,
to think along the lines of the schizophrenic entering into a broader expanse of consciousness where these things become a reality, you know?
yeah, yeah. So I have a background in computers and technology, so I sort of have a bit of an understanding how these pictures are created. And if that's what I was saying, an example, if I was to say, draw me a picture of a man sitting on a chair in a room next to a window, it comes out very similar, except it doesn't have all the the light beams of light and the sitting position. It's the same guy. So
Yeah.
all it's doing is taking a bunch of pictures that it's looked at as it's scanned the internet or wherever it's getting its source data from, and it's just changing the picture around to suit what I asked for, which is an armchair. I mean, if I every time I did it, it did the same armchair, it did the same room, it did the same window. It had the plants on the side. It was always the same. As long as I said, draw me a picture of a man sitting in an armchair in a room with a window, it would do the exact same guy. And so saying that it's an extension of a consciousness is only in the sense that I'm seeing it. I guess, yeah, in the large scheme of things, I did create, my consciousness did create it. The greater consciousness did create it. I don't think I'm really getting anywhere with what I'm trying to say. But it gets better. Things get better. This story is almost over. So this was about this happened about 12 months ago, and then I talked to you in our first chat and sort of highlighted some of these things, and then but I didn't have pictures, so I thought I'd just recap it. So then, what happened? Just reading my notes here. Oh yes, so at that point, after that, after speaking with you, I uncovered the Gateway tapes. I found a download for the Gateway tapes. You know, the Robert Monroe Institute Gateway tapes.
Yeah.
You heard of that?
Yeah.
The hemisync, the binaural beats, the meditation. So I started working on them. I read a lot of papers on what the CIA thought they were all about, and then I started doing the tapes. And the first time I had one meditation state where it was almost the second time I tried it. I stopped breathing, and I hadn't had a breath for about 2 minutes. But in my mind, it felt like I was still breathing, but my body wasn't moving. It was almost like my brain was thinking I was breathing and stayed relaxed because it was sort of thinking my body was breathing, but I could feel my body wasn't breathing, but my brain thought I was. Probably makes no sense. So anyway, at that point, I hadn't been breathing, and then of course something kicked in and said, "Oh, well, if you don't breathe, you're going to die. So you better start breathing." And I forced myself to breathing while I was meditating. So that happened, and then I kept going through the tapes. I didn't really get much else after, except I felt a bit calmer during the daytimes. I didn't really get any other experiences, any out of body experiences from those tapes. I only got through the first two CDs, which is about 8 different meditation sessions, and there'd be about 32. So I didn't even get that far. And I sort of stopped doing it for a while. And at the same time, though, I'd been reading up stuff about trying to activate pineal gland or pineal gland, if that's what it's called. Yeah. Different things you could do. You heard about Kundalini awakenings
Mm-hmm.
and what things you have to do to push that. Talking about getting the sacred fluids to go down your spine into your chakras and then coming back up again, and then what does that turn into in your brain? Do you know the answer?
Well,
What that happens?
it's supposed to fill your mind with light. It's supposed to be a form of enlightenment. Um,
Uh,
you can get varying things. I mean, it's the Christos. The fluid's called the Christos, the spinal fluid. Yeah, the spinal
yeah,
fluid is supposed to raise up, and the Kundalini, it just means curled up snake, and so it feels like a serpent swirling around your spine. And so when this works its way up through the chakras, then you sit erect, and then it comes out the top of your head with a burst of pure white light, and then you'll enter into some sort of very long um, convalescing period whereby you try to make sense of what happened to your body with this massive amount of energy, and on occasions it can last up to about 7 years. And so this fits in very well with my spiritual awakening, because I went into this very deep, like lethargy and depression for 7 years. 7 years is a big number, of course. It's a spiritual, religious number, and so yeah, lots of people that have the Kundalini raising, and there's lots of different stories and speculation, of course, because nobody knows what it is. It's all down to interpretation. So, what do you have to say on it?
Well, so I'd been working on that for about 9 months. Nothing really happened at all.
Jason, why
And
would you
then
want
the
that
other,
to happen? Because if you listen to people who have had a Kundalini raising, you wouldn't want the after effect for at least 3 years.
I wouldn't want the after effect for 3 years.
Yeah,
What
for at
What do
least
you
3 years.
mean?
It seems to go on between 3 and 7 years. Your body, it just feels like shit, and you've kind of like got to regroup every cell in your body, and your mind, because it's a really big deal and it transforms you.
Well,
And
I felt like my path was pointing in that direction to do that. Just the way things, you have synchronicities in your life, and you try and you sort of start noticing things and patterns, and things get revealed to you at certain times, and it seems to like you're being guided. You've said that yourself.
yeah,
You feel like you're being guided through this
yeah,
life. So I was following that sort of guidance, and then a few days ago, a week ago, probably a week ago, I was getting really caught up in this whole Iran business, as most people are, and remembering all that forgiveness stuff that I talked about before. Well, at what point, what sort of forgiveness? I've got to forgive the you know who's for causing all this, as you would put it, or I've got to forgive the reptilian overlords controlling the whole thing. I've got to give them forgiveness. And so I just kept going higher and higher and higher. And then I thought I was been watching some YouTube videos about how to do manifestations, and of course they all talk about manifesting money and or a successful relationship. And I've had all that, and all I want to do is give it away. I told you I had thousands and thousands of dollars, and all I want to do is give it away. So I've been thinking for years, well, I don't know what I want. Just been stuck in this whole loop of not knowing what I really want. And so then I thought the other day, well, this whole Iran thing's just going off, and it's making me very upset. I thought, well, I'll hope for a better world. So I focused for a whole day, as one of the instructions are, focusing on it all day. And then I went to bed that night, and then I put myself into a meditation state from the experiences of the gateway tapes. And then, boom, it happened. I went, somehow I went like inside myself and then outside myself and then reached up. And then there was this huge ball of blue light, electric blue, like a blob. And I reached into it. And at the same time, I was thinking, we need a better world. We need a better world. And it said to me on my head, it is done. And then there's thousands of voices cheering. And this is happening while I was in bed. And then I was just like in bliss, and I had a smile, and it felt like it was going past my ears. A smile so huge, it's like I made it. I manifested this is going to happen. This is going to turn out good. And then I sort of was drifting in and out of sleep. And normally when I sleep, I have visions, and they look like that. This is what I see when I'm sort of drifting off into sleep. I see like pulsating patterns like that. In some cases, they look like a person.
Hmm.
So then after that experience I was talking about where I reached up into this big blue blob in this like out of body experience, but I don't know where I was inside myself, I was outside myself, but it also reached out, touched this blob, and it said that into my head, and then I sort of was trying to get back to sleep, and instead of that, I was seeing this, which is a thumbprint. How detailed is that compared to what I normally would see? It's now that, and all these dots were all moving around like little rivers around the thumbprints.
Right.
So it was like it was amazing. And it's like I thought maybe there's something, I've unlocked something to feel like I jumped timelines in a sense, if that makes sense. I've gone from one universe that was headed for destruction into a different universe, a parallel universe. I jumped across into
Right.
the one I want. And then the next day, when I was walking around, it was like light was coming out of me and light was coming into me, and everybody around me was just like no threat, And then the day after that, I was going to the hardware store, and it was like everything was smiling at me. Like when you talk about when you're on DMT and all the flowers and everything are all dancing, well, everything was doing that for me. Everything was smiling at me. And then I realized this is the all seeing eye looking at me.
It's
And
you.
this, yeah, it's me looking through all those eyes at me, but not being aware. So it was like I was in the feedback loop, where you're not supposed to be.
Hmm.
Because if you're like that, you can't function in society,
Yeah.
can you? So anyway, that was pretty intense. And then I had a problem with some work I was doing on the house here. So I went to the hardware store, and then I had a problem, and then it forced me to do other things. And anyway, I started watching videos on um, Enil and Enki.
Hmm.
So, and then brought me around to one of your Volve videos about the tablets, Emerald tablets and Thoth. And I started looking into that. And then I was on this whole spiral again of like good and bad and this and that and blah, 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 all this material stuff. And then that night I went to bed and ended up having I didn't even have a dream. I just woke up and, I'd ejaculated in my sleep and I didn't even have a dream about it or anything. And it's like it all left me, and it made me realize that I was getting stuck back in the material world with this researching Anunnaki and Anil and Enki and Thoth. I was getting stuck back in the material, and it sort of ripped me back down here. So now I'm trying to work back on getting back up the top there where I was when everything was smiling at me, and I was like at one with the universe almost. That's what I'm trying to get back to now.
Hmm. So
So that's it.
when you speak about trying to get somewhere, where do you feel that you want to get to?
Back home, back to before I was born. That back with the consciousness, back with one, the source, back with source.
Well, you'll do that when you die, but uh, in the Earth experience, uh, what are you pushing for?
Well, just to be happy.
Just to be happy. So,
Yeah,
why aren't you happy?
I don't know. I don't know. I've got everything I need. I guess it's just search for knowledge, I suppose, and wanting to know. My whole personality is about picking things apart and trying to understand them, and so I could control them, I guess.
Well, my whole thing is analyzing and picking things apart, but I'm not uh, striving for anything. I'm not trying to get anywhere. I'm perfectly happy and content where I am, and so it's a fallacy of trying to be somewhere else. I mean, all the Buddhists and Eckhart Tolle and spiritual peoples will tell you that there's nowhere else to be. You are it. You are there, and so you have to make some certain realizations that you are all that there is, and your mind is creating some sort of loss or some sort of angst or strife and all these things. And so instead of trying to be somewhere, the thing to do is to try to eliminate those things which are pulling you in opposing directions.
Okay, so today I actually had telepathic communication with another person, and it was confirmed by him in the sense that he he knew what I was thinking and then said it out loud, and I completed the sentence for him, and he gave me a wave as if to say, "Yeah, yeah, I caught that thought." He's actually an Indigenous person, lives here, and I've sort of got to know, and so he's like one of the original Australians, I guess.
Mm.
And so, are you telling me I shouldn't be trying to read people's thoughts?
Right. So he did he feel
Because
you?
I couldn't help it.
Right. So did he feel you or intuit that you were trying to read his thoughts?
No, he was walking away from me, and I had a thought because I was talking to someone else, and he yelled out what I was thinking, and then I completed the sentence about what he was thinking, and then he waved back as if to sort of acknowledge, yeah, we're on the same wavelength there. So, and I'm having all these other sort of strange things, like I would call someone. It's in the last couple of days. I would call someone, and they'd not answer, and then they'd call me straight back, and I say, "Oh, did you miss my call?" And they say, "Oh, no, I just accidentally called you." And I'm like, "Okay, so you didn't see me call you first?" And I said, "No, I just called you." And this is happening a lot more. Like I'm thinking about someone, and they'll call me, or it's really it's getting weird.
Hmm.
But I'm completely sane as far as I'm not acting out. I'm not worried.
So
Whereas before, so yeah, go on.
right, take me through exactly the scenario with you speaking to this indigenous person. Tell me
Okay,
exactly.
he's an old friend. Well, he comes around a lot to my house to get his bike fixed and get things fixed like pliers and stuff. I just met him on the street at one point, and we were just chatting, and so he comes around to for me to fix things for him. I do that. No, so he's Indigenous Australian, so he's Aboriginal. So, but he's very polite, and you know he seems like he's sort of doing all right. And anyway, so out today, outside the front of my house, there's some guy, just a random looking guy with all his backpacks and his stuff with him. He looked like a hitchhiker standing at the front, and there's it's not a normal place for someone to just stand there. It's like a main road. And I saw him out there, and he had a little sign about the size of a had with what was written on where he was going. I thought, well, nobody's going to see that. By the time they read that, they're 300 metres up the road before they process where he's going, and it's too late for them to turn around. So I went to my garage and grabbed a big sheet of cardboard and spray can and went out and talked to him. Well, where are you from? Oh, who? What's your name? And where you going? Let's fix the sign up for you so you can get on your way. And he was very grateful. His name was Esteban from Argentina. And so I had a bit of chat to him. And then out of the blue, my friend of mine, his name's BB. His name's BB. And so he just showed up out of nowhere. And we were chatting, and I said, "Oh, this is Esteban, and he's from Argentina, trying to get a lift, and trying to help him out." And then BB, he walked off, and just as he was walking off, he said, "What's his name again?" I said, "Esteban." And he said, "Oh yeah, Esteban," and he kept walking away. And I'm still there standing, talking to Esteban, and I'm thinking right at that point, I remember the name Esteban from a kids television show I used to watch when I was younger, a cartoon show called The Mysterious Cities of Gold. And, it's probably not in your timeline as far as age, because you're 10 years older than me. Anyway, it's a kids show, a cartoon. And then as BB got about 100 metres away, 50 metres away from me, he called out, "Oh, Esteban, the cartoon." And I was like, "Yeah, Mysterious Cities of Gold." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And he just said that as I was thinking it.
Hmm.
Is that enough detail?
Yeah. Okay. So he asked you what his name was, or you told him what his name was, Esteban.
Yeah. Mm.
Now, maybe that name didn't compute with him because it's like Spanish name, isn't it? South American name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was a new name, and so he was like Esteban. And then did he ask you again what it was?
Oh, as BB was walking away, because he was on his way, I'm still standing there talking to Esteban, the hitchhiker. BB walks away. The and just as he turns to walk away, he says, "Oh, what was his name again?" And I said, "Esteban." He said, "Oh, yeah, 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 that's right, that's right." And he
Yeah.
walks off, says bye,
So then he walks off because first and
walks
foremost,
off.
he Esteban. It probably registered unconsciously with him, but he couldn't find it. So he's walking further and further until in the end
But
he
I'm
found.
thinking exactly the same time. I'm thinking of that TV show. I just remembered now. I
Yeah,
remembered. I remember this TV show, and he says instantly, "Oh, Esteban, the cartoon." Exactly the same time as I thought about it.
yeah,
It was like I was picturing it, and then he was picking up the thought and
yeah.
said it back to me.
So I mean, synchronicity and nothing so unusual. But if these things were happening all the time, then they start to form a
Yeah,
pattern. You know.
yeah.
Um,
Strange events are occurring when. Yeah, so I think I've unlocked something that I shouldn't be. Well, obviously I should be because I have done, but I can't explain it other than that I'm seeing through the eye of um, of God at the same time as seeing through my eyes.
hmm.
So it's like you're not supposed to see through the eyes of God. You're supposed to be just a little drone on this plane.
Well, I mean, who says you're not supposed to?
Well, you can only do that when you take things like mushrooms and DMT and have those
Well,
sorts of experiences.
yeah, but you haven't been taking those, and you are doing it. So, and why do you suppose that you're not supposed to? When are you supposed to then? Are you supposed to when you're on drugs? Is
When
that
you die, when you die,
when you die?
and when you do drugs, yeah, when
Yeah,
you die, and when you do deep meditation business
yeah.
for
Well, I mean,
years, for decades.
but very often, I speak about being out in nature and being the oneness, and everything is a reflection of me. Everything is me looking back at me, really.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I'm out in the woods and it's a rainy day, I'm very conscious that my reflection is in every single one of the beads of rain dripping from those leaves and twigs. And so I don't think I'm not supposed to be thinking like that. I feel very privileged that my mind is free enough to be able to do that. And so, what I would think that's probably happening is that your mind is becoming more free, and it is thinking more freely, and you're getting more of these unusual thoughts. Um, and because you've had psychotic episodes in the past, you may be afraid of them, but unless there's really something that you should logically, reasonably be afraid of, then I don't think there's any reason why you should be afraid. And when you walk into a shop, if you feel that it's a reflection of you, well, it is.
Well, now when I'm walking around, I'm thinking things like, if something bad happens to me, it's because my higher self thought that's what I need to have happen to me. And it will create some other chain of events that'll take me on my guided path. So it's almost like I don't even care what happens because it was meant to happen. It's like the path is already laid out. I don't have to be concerned. It's almost like I'm invincible.
Yeah.
Got this sort of feeling of being invincible.
Ah. Well, I mean, I feel like that. I feel that no harm can
Yeah.
ever come to
Well,
me.
well. Anyway, Aaron, you say you want to hear stuff from people, and that's what I
Yeah,
got.
yeah, no, that's right. So what I'm saying is that you seem to have reservations about these things, that there may be a danger to you, or that there may not be right. You're not permitted. Well, I mean, you say to me, does it make sense? Well, it makes sense to my mind. And that's why you're watching my videos, because I say peculiar things that most people don't say. But I've seen really, really bizarre things. But I think the difference from what I'm hearing from you is that I'm not afraid in any shape or form. I don't feel that I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, and I'm not permitted to. I think that might be a societal thing, and I
Well,
think,
it's old programs in your mind that you've been programmed to.
course, it stems from being sectioned and having psychotic episodes, and so you really do need to be careful about that sort of stuff. You do need to monitor it. You do need to see what sort of thoughts you're having. But if they're innocuous thoughts, they're harmless, then no reason to be concerned.
Yeah,
But
I don't ever have thoughts of violence or hurting anyone
self
or
harm.
no, no. It's a more like I don't know what's going on and I need to find out. Like you said, I think it was at the beginning of this video because I was asking you some questions and you said you feel like you're here, you're trying to find out. You're trying to find out what this is all about, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
said that at the beginning of the video. Well, that's what I feel like I'm trying to do.
And that's why we meditate, because meditation can show you very, very peculiar things. It can give you out of body experiences, and stuff like what you had. It just can. They're not that often. In 17 years, I've had half a dozen profound things, visions, and feelings, and that. Um, but then, when you have put your mind into that realm, then it opens up for uh, a broader spectrum of consciousness, and you'll feel more, you'll see more, you'll intuit more, because you have escaped the confines of your narrow parameter of the ego. The human program, which is just the operating system to have the fiction of a human experience. But on one
Yes,
occasion,
well, I've been trying. I've been trying to do that the last probably year or so. Is recognise these old programs that come up and try and force me to think a certain way about a person, judge someone in a certain way, and try to recognise it and sort of stop it. It's more like judgmental sort of things when you see someone that doesn't quite fit what you think is right, and you might judge them the way they look.
yeah,
And I know started trying to force myself, trying to notice that more and be aware of it,
yeah, but okay,
so
so
that
so you notice it and you're aware of it, but why
yeah.
guilt trip yourself about it? Like we're not
Why
supposed to.
guilt myself?
Yeah, why guilt? Why guilt?
No, no, not so much guilt. Not guilting myself. I'm sort of being more aware of my thoughts in that sense that I
You
do
just
these sorts of.
you try to stop it. You try to stop the
Yeah,
judgment.
okay, yeah, I do try and stop it because it doesn't feel like it. Like you should be judging people.
Well,
So
is
it
that
comes sort of natural, but it feels like you shouldn't.
yeah? But where is this feeling coming from? Is this the
Well,
feeling?
God wouldn't judge you because it's just all omnipotent and
Yeah,
everywhere. And God wouldn't judge something for what it looked like or whatever because it
hang
made
on.
it. So I'm thinking,
No. Have you read the Bible?
I got up to about I don't know, halfway to Exodus, and I was like, oh my God, I can't
Yeah.
understand this. And you talk to someone, you try and get their interpretation, and you talk to someone else, and the same exact paragraph, and they'll give you a completely different interpretation of that.
Yeah.
And then you've got which version of the Bible you want to read, the International Standard Version, the King James Version, or the Roman Catholic Version, or blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
What Bible? What Bible are you asking I read? Because it's
Well,
just, and then you got people saying right now that half the Bible isn't even real. It's all made up by the Roman Empire to try and uh, push their agenda. And it's like I don't know what to think anymore. So
yeah.
reading the Bible,
Well,
why?
let me just address then. Because you've got misconceptions and you've got thoughts which are not correct, and these thoughts are stemming from ignorance. They're stemming from indoctrination, from propaganda, from the poisoning that you've had as a societal entity. All these things, the vast majority is poison. It's wrong. It's nothing like the reality. And so then you say that you're trying to stop judging. If someone doesn't, live up to your expectations or something, if you see someone ugly or, overly skinny, overly thin, then you shouldn't have a judgment about them. Well, you know, a judgment is just an assessment, and there's nothing wrong with assessments. But if you want to say it's a judgment because someone says, "Oh, it's bad to judge," well, just change that word and say to yourself, "I'm not judging. I'm observing. I'm looking." And because I'm an intelligent person, I'm not a fucking drone. I can think for myself and I can distinguish between people, and that one is a particularly ugly one, and I would never even be able to imagine kissing that person for $1,000 because I find it so repulsive. Well, do you think that there's a God that's going to condemn you for doing that?
Um, no, no, of course not, because I've had arguments with God about who's going to hell and who's going to be condemned. And
Well,
I
so
said, I said, to God, well, I was trying to bargain and say, okay, well, if these people can't get in, then these people can't get in, then I don't want to be, I don't want to be there. And he's like, well, okay, what if everybody else can get in except you? And I said, yep, that's fine by me. I don't want to be there if you're not going to accept this group of people or this group of people. So when you just asked me then, would God judge me for hold anything against me for having those judgments? I guess the answer would be no.
And so we have to ask the question: Who is God?
Well, it's actually me, but in a higher state than what I'm in right now in this body.
But if
That's what
your
God is.
higher state is judging you and chastising you, well, that God sounds just like a conscience to me.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Don't really know.
You see,
But
when you
I'm trying to make sense of all this.
yeah, and so look, when you read the Bible, all the misconceptions about this benevolent God will be shattered if you are an intelligent person. If you are a fool, then you will blindly read over all of the abominations which are on almost every page of these religious books, the Quran and the Old Testament. The New Testament is very different, but the Old Testament, with Yahweh, he's a jealous, a conniving, a murdering, a manipulative um, bastard the biggest bastard you can ever imagine. And somewhere, somebody said some bullshit that this God loves you and forgives you for all of your transgressions. And yet, when he's telling the Jews what to do in the Bible, well, he's got no forgiveness because what he does is he says, okay, I'm finally sick of you fuckers because you've been worshipping other gods. And so now I want you all to stand in a line. And on this particular day, it says this on this particular day, there were 3,226 men, and they were in rows of threes. And then God said to them, right, the man on the right side, take out your sword and stick it into the neck on the man of your left. And then it says, on that day, there were 143 men slayed. And then the people, the chosen people, had something to think about their transgressions of God. And so, hang on, benevolent God, loving God, forgiving God. No, there's hundreds of incidents of this, and so if you ever start thinking about God again, then if you can't get through that Bible, completely forget about it because it isn't anything like what you think it is or what you've been told it is. It's a complete crock of shit, and it's the most abhorrent thing you could ever read. It literally is arse about face. Satan is God, and God is Satan because Satan.
That's what I said to Christian group when I started going to church years ago, is to try explore that avenue. And I went to a Bible study and I said, "Hang on, guys, I just realised that God made everything. He made Satan. What do you do? Don't you know that?" And they're all shocked. And then I stood up and the walls were throbbing in this house that we're in. And I walked out and just never went back to church again. Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, I mean, there's obviously things going on in your mind because I've never been in a room where the walls start throbbing, and things like that. So there's things that your mind are doing which aren't normal. And I can't, speculate what they're about. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't have the deepest of
No.
relationship with schizophrenics and ill minds, but there's certainly a propensity, to have these crazy things, really edgy. Now, I've had crazy things, and I've wrote about them all in my book, and I've spoken about them, but they've always been very, very coherent. Even though they've been peculiar, they've been exceedingly coherent, and mind hasn't been in a bizarre way, or the whole world hasn't turned into thunder, and demons are pointing
Well,
down at me with bolts of lightning, and all crazy stuff. No, I've seen stuff, but it's all been very spiritual, very rational and logical.
but what about the time you were seeing all the trees around you all swirling and
Yeah, that's when
alive when you're on
psilocybin,
mushrooms?
DMT. Yeah.
Oh, so it's different if you're on drugs. You can say, no, well, I can think that when I'm on drugs, but when you're not on drugs, you can't think that.
Well, no, it's not that you can't think it. It's just that uh, most people, I would say, don't have these experiences like they are on drugs. You see, you said that you didn't have any of these visions when you're smoking weed. When you stopped it, that's when it all started. Well, when I'm not on anything, very seldom do I get something. But when I am on something, every single time I get something. And so it
Hmm.
seems that, when I was smoking marijuana, I smoked half a spliff one day. I haven't smoked it in many years, but I smoked half a spliff. It paralyzed me. I couldn't move for 3 whole hours. I lied on the couch, and the only thing I could move was my eyes. And after a
Yeah.
while of thinking, I'm not going to be able to fucking move from this, I thought, well, let me see what I can see then. And I closed my eyes and I said, well, take me back to ancient Egypt. Instantly, I was back in ancient Egypt. And then I saw a whole scenario, which again I speak about extensively in my book, so I won't do it here. And then when I saw that, I said, "Okay, fantastic. Take me to the ancient Mayan temples." And in an instant, I was standing before a Mayan Indian in the jungle with a bone through his nose and a bone in here, and his shiny, very very chocolate skin, and it's super trim and six pack of muscles with a spear and all the regalia. And he was looking at me as far as we are away from each other, but he wasn't looking at me like I was a stranger. He was looking at me as if he knew me. So when I got there, I obviously came into a body of another Indian. In his tribe or whatever, and then I saw the pyramids and how they were originally, on all this wonderful thing. And then after that, I said,
So
wow,
after cannabis, after you had cannabis,
sorry,
you just had the joint, you said,
half
and
a
all this
joint
happened.
of cannabis. Yes.
Mm.
Now, then, the last thing I said, I said, okay, well, take me into the future, 250 years. And then I was instantly up in space. And I I never had a body. I just had consciousness. I had the eyes to perceive, and I saw a massive round planet, which was inhabited all over. It had cities all over, and everything was made out of rectangles of some sort of smaller or larger, taller or thinner degree, and they were made out of like gun metal, and they had beveled edges. There were no sharp edges at all, and the gunmetal was buffed so it didn't reflect the light. You see, and then there was a spaceship which was made exactly the same as that, right next to it, and I could see these absolutely crystal clear. Now these things are really really bizarre, and I'm fully compass mentis at the time. I'm just closing my eyes and I'm seeing things in full technicolor. Now, I said to my friend who's been smoking this stuff for 40 years, and he said he had never ever had visions on it, and I smoked
Right.
half
So
a joint, and that's what I got.
do you think that those visions you had were real or just imagined?
No,
Like exactly.
it's very, very difficult to be imagined because the details were so absolutely real. As I'm looking at you, I can look at the folds and the wrinkles in your face. I can look at your stubble. I can look at your eyes, your eyelashes. I can look at everything. I could
Here
never
we go.
imagine this. I could never imagine this. If
Yeah.
I close my eyes and try to imagine what you look like now and draw it, that'd be wildly wrong. No, our imagination isn't that powerful. Something supernatural happens where we actually see this stuff. Like you see different stuff. We go into a different dimension of consciousness, a parallel universe, or something like that. I'm absolutely convinced. And so when you say to me, does that make sense? Well, it makes sense to me from the perspective that I've experienced lots of these things with or without entheogens. But there's certain facets of what you experience I haven't experienced. And they seem bordering on what you was diagnosed with, that sort of thing. I don't know. I'm not a professional, and I've only listened to
No,
you.
no. I'm not expecting any answers from you. That's not why I want to talk to you. I see you're screaming out for interaction from people, and I think, well, I've got something to say, so I may as well say it to you.
Yeah.
I try and tell other people about it, and they shut off, or they don't want to listen, or they just like they don't want to hear it. So
No, they don't because they think it's wacky because they haven't experienced anything. But all that
no,
you've said to me, I can imagine or I can recall that I've had lots of similar things depending on what I've been on. Now, one occasion when I wasn't on anything, I was doing Wim Hof rapid breathing. You take 12 very, very deep breaths
yeah,
in and out, in and
mm,
out. And on the 12th one, you hold it, and then you go a little bit dizzy. And I was doing this on a beach, and there was big fluffy clouds in the sky, and I'm just like this thinking, okay, I'm open, am I going to pass out, what's going to happen, I don't know. And then I saw a bearded man with long hair just ahead in the clouds, and it stayed there for about 30 seconds until it very slowly faded away. And I'm like, wow, that was very, very DMT esque. It was a proper face. It wasn't just like, oh, it looks a little bit like a face.
almost, yeah.
It was a proper fucking face in the clouds. So I said, I'm going to do it again. I did it again and I brought it back. And it was there for another 20 seconds until it faded away and the oxygen, whatever. I tried to do it again. I couldn't. And then I tried to do it subsequent times, many times after. And I haven't got anything like that. On that particular one occasion, I saw it twice. It was there. It was as clear as anything could be. So there's many, many things that, just happen spontaneously. Who knows why, but I wrote about them in my book. I've spoken about them, hundreds of times in my videos. I've never had a single person wanting to inquire more into them, because the vast majority of people never get this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's a
Anyway,
privilege.
I hope that was entertaining for you at least.
Yeah, well,
Some
I thoroughly enjoyed it, because it shows that there are people out there who see varying things. They enter into varying states of consciousness. There's many, many different states of consciousness, and so people that are going to be watching this, I mean, maybe they'll be inclined into start revealing just a little bit if they're not too terrified, to put down a fucking comment. What else could it be? Laziness. They don't give a fuck. They just want to take and not give. There's so many things. There's so much wrong with a human being. There really is. And, uh, I find it very, very difficult to find good in the human being because there's only very, very few which I would consider that would, qualify for that label. But
yeah. Well, I'm apprehensive to come and talk to you about this because I would think you just write it off as just crazy ramblings of a schizophrenic and not really anything of intelligence to really discuss, and not really satisfying your thirst for. for intelligent conversation.
So
That's why
you
I would.
did what did you think? Did you think I was going to dismiss it?
No, on the surface, no, you wouldn't be rude to me or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I would think that you would be like, oh, there's another crazy one, put in the pile,
Yeah, but why would I think that, Jason, when,
because you're looking for people to talk to that are vastly more intelligent and experienced than me, much like yourself, and I'm just another pleb, really.
Well, no, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, look, in relation to intelligence, intelligence doesn't really enter into it as far as this is concerned because it's experience. You spoke about genuine experiences that you've had through many years. And I've spoken about genuine experiences I've had through many years, and so there's a confluence there. And you've listened to mine, and you've probably thought, well, I mean, he has, batshit crazy stuff like I do. And he talks about it, so I'll talk about it with Aaron, run it by him, see if he just thinks there's a little bit of, something to be gleaned in there. Yes, it's been very useful. And this is what I've been appealing to people to speak about because I think we'll find if more people feel free, then there's a whole lot more people that have these sort of things than, people would let on too, because when people have an out of body experience, they'll go, "Oh, I never told anyone because they think I was crazy." Well, it's just ignorance
Yeah.
to think that, because if you go on the internet, you see hundreds of thousands of all different sorts of bizarre experiences, and so people should start speaking about them more and get it into the nitty gritty. And this is why I like the details because look, you was anxious to run through your story, and so you were skipping along the top of the pond, in brief, telling me about this one and this one and this one and this one, and I only got the opportunity to question you just a little bit about the one with Estevan, because otherwise I can't make any sense of it, and nor could anybody else. You see, because
Okay.
if you only say that, oh, hey, I saw this Aboriginal guy and, I said this and he said that and, God speaking to me and that, they're going to go, yeah, all right, then keep taking the pills. But if you sat down with someone close to you and you said, can I tell you about an experience I had? And you went through all the details, then they get more of a rational picture and it wouldn't sound so crazy.
Right. Good point. But see, I sort of was brushing over everything fast because I wanted to try and get the whole picture to where I am now, where I'm just getting very strange synchronicities occurring all around me. It's almost like I've been elevating, 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 and it's now getting very, very odd. Like
So,
I said, I thought the whole paranoia thing I put down to it's me sensing that all-seeing eye in everything, sensing it but not realizing what it is, and then becoming paranoid because you don't know what's watching you. But you know it's something is watching you, but you can't see it. And only at this point now, in the last week, I've come to realize that this this thing that's watching me all the time, which is actually me, is making me has what has, I got all this paranoia from over my past. Does that? Um,
do you remember watching one of my videos when I was down in Portugal? And the video was titled "There's Always Something Watching You," or "There's Always Something Looking at You." And
no, we
the
didn't do
thumb
that one.
on the video was me pointing to an eye in a tree. Okay,
Was that when you went on that holiday with that lady who paid for your holiday?
Portugal. I was down in Portugal for 3 years, and I made
No, I don't think I was watching your channel at that stage.
Right.
You may have reposted it, but I didn't see it. No.
Yeah. So, I've been saying these things for years, and you see why I can say them with freedom, without thinking that I'm going crazy or that people will think I'm crazy, is because I've read so much information about how the mind is, how the world is, how the cosmos is, how spirit is, and all these different sorts of things. Now, if you read extensively in these sort of things, then you'd start to feel much more comfortable about things that you were seeing when other people will be describing the same
Exactly.
things.
Exactly. You imagine if you were just a dumb fuck like me, didn't know much, and all of a sudden you get this sense that you're being watched from everywhere, that you can't put your finger on it, but you know it's happening. It would drive you insane if you didn't know what it was about. But now, only just now, I've realised what that thing that was watching me actually was. That it's driven me to the point of insanity, of paranoia. But it's God watching me through that all seeing eye. That's in everything, every cell, every atom, every point of contact in this entire realm is God's watching you from it. It's the experience that it's getting, taking it back to source, and every insect that's around you. If, Now, if you don't know what that is all about, and you're just sensing that it's happening, it drives you insane.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, um, uh,
You think someone's watching you, but they're not. But you're sure they are. Well, it drives you. It drives you absolutely nuts.
yeah.
It's
I
just what
mean,
happens. I don't understand why.
it depends on from what vantage you considering that, but
Well, I
what
thought the CIA was following me at one point
you
in
thought,
my
what?
LSD trip. The CIA was trying to capture me
Right.
when I had my LSD trip, and I was in a bar with my friends, and then there was these other people, and of course I'm picking up this extra dimensional um, thing that's part of this reality watching me, and but I'm picking up on that, but not realizing what it is, and I start projecting it onto other people in the bar, thinking they're CIA agents trying to track me down because I've got no other thing to put it against what it is. So I make up a story in my
Yeah,
head.
to a story, your mind, your ego gets paranoid and it starts, creating the worst scenario. But
Yeah,
just getting back to this, there's always something watching you. You're watching yourself. I mean, lots
yeah,
of people.
yeah, yeah. I realise that. Yeah, now.
Let me continue with what I'm saying here because it's really important. There are philosophies which will state that the cosmos is pure consciousness, and there's nothing safe for consciousness. It's just a conscious dream. And they're very, very serious about this. And even quantum physicists will tell us that there's no physical matter here, and so it's all mind. And so when you
Mhm.
start to know this, and you've got the confidence because so-called brilliant scientists have said this, and philosophers for thousands of years, once you know that, Jason, then you will feel more privileged because you are entering into that same level of consciousness. You don't have to be
Yeah,
afraid. You don't have to feel like you're
no,
fucking crazy. Your consciousness is expanding, and it's a beautiful thing.
I only just figured it out like 7 days ago, Aaron.
Right.
That this thing watching me is watching me. I only just figured it out myself
How did you figure it out?
because I saw some. I was okay trying to rewind it. Okay, I was in this state of mind where I jumped timelines when I explained before for a better world, and I was still looking up stuff on the internet, and then this person wrote a comment, and I go and look at their channel, Um, because they said something that was meaningful to me, and I went and checked their channel, and his channel had he was doing an artistic animation of a figure of a person, but the head was just an eye, a blue eye, and that's when it clicked that this all-seeing eye is like a person, but it's everywhere. That's me because I'm God, and it all just sort of clicked. All the all the jigsaw pieces that have been rummaging through for years, it all just fitted. And then when I went to the hardware store, it was like, yeah, I could see this. I could feel this eye looking at me from in everything, but I was extremely happy about it because I knew it was just me observing
Yeah,
me
yeah,
while I'm here observing that going on. And I was calm about it, but if, years gone by, I was sensing all that, but completely paranoid, not realizing what's watching me. I know something's watching me. Are they fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional beings? Are they aliens? Or what's watching me? I feel like I'm being studied.
right.
It was just that I only just figured that out. You see, so I've only just gone whoosh,
Uh,
figured it out. But you've known this for years. You see,
yes.
and it's like
You,
I'm only just beginning.
you see, there's some dude called Rupert Sheldrake, and he's wrote books on the phenomenon of knowing when you're being watched. And he says how many of us have felt as if we're being watched from an obscure place, from the top of a roof or from a little window or something like that, and you turn around and you look exactly to the person that's looking exactly at you. How do we know that? What goes on? It's a phenomenon. It happens. We actually
Mm.
know when we're being watched, by another person. And so when you're feeling that something's watching you, I've always felt as if I'm being guided and hence watched all my life. I've never felt alone. And I've always felt invincible, that no harm could ever come to me. And as to why that is, I can't justify it. It's just how I've always felt, how I've always intuited, and I've always
But you must have known. You must have known from your prior readings of books and stuff that that's what was watching you. What it
no, I did.
was that was watching
So
you.
this was
You
before I
didn't.
started reading. You know,
Oh, okay.
this was from when I was a kid. Where when I was a young adult and all that. I never started reading till till I retired, until about 45. I had my spiritual awakening. Otherwise, I was too busy traveling the world and all that sort of stuff. I read books now and again, but nothing like as prolific as I am now.
Yeah, but see, for you sensed that you're being watched, and you weren't aware of what it was that was watching you, and you were okay with it. But for me, I'm being watched, or why am I being watched and studied, and it just drives you insane. What's watching me? What's going on? And my brain starts making up stories about who's watching me. Is it some secret agents, or the types of stories people come up
Yeah.
with?
Well, no,
But for you just like, oh, I just know I'm being watched.
no, I've never had that.
Where's your sense of self-preservation?
Yeah, but that's paranoia, isn't it? That's paranoia.
Yeah.
And so I've never had paranoia like that.
Mm.
What the feeling of me being watched isn't like something is clandestinely spying on me, and I'm like, where is it? Who is it? No, it's a presence that was with me from birth, before birth. It's always been there. It's been like a guiding force, and it's something that's been with me and been a part of me, and I am it. So I always knew that I was the cosmos, that I was God, on one level. But then when I started to educate myself about all these things, all the pieces come together when you start to read other people who explain these sort of things from their perspective. You know?
Right. So I didn't have the luxury as you had of like knowing it was all okay, I was in complete storm of all this, and I've only just figured out in the last few days the end. This is like the end of it. I've, it's almost like I've completed the book of life, and it's been a hell of a battle, but I've managed to get through it all.
Well, if you found some peace now in that, then that's a beautiful thing, isn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so then if you just, you type stuff into Google or YouTube, um, people watching you, the sense of people watching you, or God watching you. I don't know. You work your way around, and then something will come up, and then you'll listen to these people, and they'll be speaking about similar sort of things. Well, that is an additional comfort because you'll
yeah.
realise that you're not a lunatic. Per se, we're all lunatics in some shape or form, but you see, the thing is, it's about the education. There's so much information out there, and if you engage in it and if you pursue it, then it's going to enrich you, and it's going to allay any of your insecurities that you might have, because the insecurities are the gaps in your knowledge and the ignorance. And when the ego knows there's a gap and an ignorance, it supplants fear there. That's what the ego does. It always supplants fear in the gaps of knowledge. So you've got to eradicate
Well,
the gaps with
it's trying to
knowledge.
look after you. The ego is just trying to keep you alive, really, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
The ego is to keep you alive.
the ego does lots of things. We could talk about that, for hours and hours in
Yeah,
another
that's right. How long are we at now?
Well, we've already done 2.5 hours, so we'll wrap this one up here. And you're more than welcome to come back again. And what I say to people on the second time, so it's not so exhausting. The first time we've got to get the background and this, that, and the other, but the second time we pick a specific subject and we stay on it. We don't just drift around. We don't just skip over, because skipping over doesn't satiate me, doesn't benefit anyone. We get down to the nitty gritty. It's kind of like, look, if you've got a dense book, then the first thing you do, you don't try and absorb all the information initially. You read it, you skim through it over, you get a basic overview of what the book's about, and then you go, okay, I've got a broad idea of what it's about, and then you go back to the first page, and then you start really absorbing. You see? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right then, mate.
Okay.
So,
Good stuff.
well, thank you for coming forward. Um, Jason from Australia, Jason Big Balls, I'm going to call him from now on, putting all these English boys to shame because they ain't got no balls. So, no, we've had one English boy actually, Tom. Um,
Yeah.
uh, who was the other person that we had, and where was he from? He's from Estonia. Risco, who was on recently, and
Yeah.
so we're just going to see if we can get more people from around the world, and give us some idea of how fucking crazy diverse we are. You know, that's the exciting thing
Yeah.
about the human being. We're seriously diverse, and we are all fucking crazy. There's not a sane one amongst us, really. So take comfort in that, mate.
Yeah.
All right, Jason. About time you went to bed, mate.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll see. We'll get there.
We'll see.
I'll have, we'll have a quick kip, and I'll be back on full charge.
All right, nice one. All right, mate.
Yeah.
Talk to you in the comments. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Cheers, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, take it easy.